Welcome to Crash Course Dred Scott versus Sandford.
Dred Scott was born a slave to the Peter Blow family in Virginia in 1799. Because of his life as a slave, he never learned to read and write. Scott was sold to Dr. John Emerson, who was a military surgeon stationed at Jefferson Barracks after the Blow family moved to St. Louis. Dred went with Emerson to many posts in Illinois and the Wisconsin Territory. This is where slavery was prohibited by the Missouri Compromise of 1820. During this time, Dred married Harriet Robinson, who was also a slave. He later had 2 children. The Scott family returned to St. Louis with Dr. Emerson and his wife in 1842. Dred and his family were hired out by Mrs. Emerson to work for other families in St. Louis after Mr. Emerson died in 1843. In 1846, after years of working and saving, the Scotts decided to buy their freedom from Sandford, in which she refused. Dred Scott decided to file suit against Sandford in a state court, debating that he was free because him and his family had lived in a territory in which slavery was outlawed. In 1850, Scott was finally declared free. However, Scott's wages were withheld following the resolution of the case, and within that time, Mrs. Emerson had remarried and left her brother John Sandford to attend her dealings. Mr. Sandford, being unwilling to pay the wages owed to Scott, appealed this decision to the Missouri Supreme Court.
The court decided to overturn the lower court's decision and was therefore ruled in Sandford's favor. Scott then filed another lawsuit claiming damages against John F.A. Sandford, the brother of John, for alleged physical abuse against him. The jury ruled that Scott was unable to sue due to him having already been a slave under Missouri law. Scott then decided to appeal to the United States Supreme Court, which reviewed the case in 1856.
Supreme Court Chief Justice Roger B. Tanley ruled that it lacked jurisdiction to take Scott's case because he was a slave. At first, the court argued that they couldn't take Scott's case because federal courts are courts of peculiar and limited jurisdiction and may only take cases brought by specific parties. As an example, under Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution, federal courts may only hear cases brought by citizens of the United States and not slaves. The court ruled that since Scott was a Negro and had ancestors who were sold as slaves, he was not a member of the political community. Since he was not technically a citizen, he could not file a lawsuit. Following this, the court argued that even though Scott was a citizen of a free state, it didn't mean he was a U.S. citizen. While the states were able to individually define citizenship, Congress still had constitutional powers to define national citizenship. The court ruled that since he was black, he was not a U.S. citizen. Lastly, the court stated that Scott couldn't be defined as free by his residency either because Congress lacked the power to ban slavery in the U.S. territories. The court saw slaves as property, and the Fifth Amendment bans Congress from taking property away from individuals without compensation.
The decision of the Dred Scott v. Sandford worsened the rising tensions between the North and South. Even though the Missouri Compromise had previously been repealed, the decision validated the Southern power and encouraged pro-slavery Southerners to expand slavery to all corners of the nation. Unsurprisingly, the anti-slavery body was outraged by this decision, giving the newly formed Republican Party a reason to fight, and helped to fuel violence between pro-slavery and anti-slavery forces. Following the Civil War, the Congress passed and ratified the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, all of which worked directly to overturn the Dred Scott decision. As of today, all people born in the United States are American citizens who may file lawsuits in federal court.